The young doctors mocked the old janitor, calling him a clueless old man, and kicked him out of the operating room. His hands were meant to hold a mop, not to touch medical instruments. He lowered his head in silence and walked out without saying a word. But fate had a way of demanding respect sooner than anyone expected. How? That morning, the hospital was unusually busy. The metallic sound of stethoscopes echoed through the halls, and monitors kept sounding alarms. Nurses rushed by with folders, while doctors strode in and out of rooms with quick, confident steps. But among the young doctors there was something else, an air of arrogance. They felt invincible. To them, the hospital was their domain, and everyone else was nothing but shadows in the background. Then, the old janitor appeared, pushing his worn-out cleaning cart. His shoulders were slouched, his hair gray, but his eyes carried a depth that no one cared to notice. One young doctor smirked and shouted, "Hey, old man, this is an operating room, not your place." Another laughed and added, "Your hands are for a mop, not for surgical tools." Laughter filled the hallway, bouncing off the walls. The old man didn't respond. He simply lowered his head and walked away in silence. And sometimes, silence weighs heavier than any insult. Minutes later, the ER doors burst open. A stretcher rushed down the corridor. On it lay a young patient, pale, lifeless, breathless. "Cardiac arrest!" a nurse screamed. "Take him to the OR now!" Inside the operating room, chaos erupted. The young doctors who had been so confident just minutes ago were now trembling. One placed the defibrillator pads incorrectly, his hands shaking. Another fumbled, dropping a vial of medicine to the floor. The glass shattered, the sound echoing through the room. The heart monitor showed only a flat line. The silence that followed was heavier than the alarms. One doctor muttered nervously, I can't do this," another whispered, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "If we don't act now, we're going to lose him." But no one moved. No one dared to act. Every passing second was stealing life away. And then, the door slowly opened. The old janitor stepped inside, the very man they had mocked and thrown out. His uniform was faded, carrying the faint smell of detergent, but his eyes, steady, unshaken, drew everyone's attention. Without a word, he approached the patient. The trembling hands of the young doctors moved aside, almost instinctively. He checked the defibrillator pads. He picked up the fallen instruments, and with a calm but firm tone, he said, "Step back." It wasn't a command, but no one dared to question it. They could all feel it. This man was not ordinary. The shock was delivered. The patient's chest jolted. The monitor stayed flat for a moment. Then, a faint flicker appeared. The old man didn't hesitate. He began chest compressions, steady, rhythmic, precise. Every movement whispered of years of experience. Then, beep. And again. And again. The heart was beating again. The room fell silent. Only the sound of the monitor and the fragile rhythm of a life returning filled the air. Everyone knew a life had just been saved. The young doctors stood frozen, their pride shattered. One of them finally asked in a trembling voice, Who are you?" The old man slowly lowered his mask. His voice was calm, almost weary. "The things you're struggling to learn from books, I learned long ago. Before you were even born, I was saving lives in war tents, on tables without electricity, under falling bombs." His words struck like a hammer. The arrogance drained from their faces, replaced by shame. None of them could look him in the eyes. The old man put the tools back in place. He asked for no thanks, no applause. Silently he picked up his mop and headed for the door. Behind him there was only silence, and the steady rhythm of a heart that had been given a second chance. That day, the young doctors learned a lesson they would never forget. A diploma may make you a doctor, but true heroism lives in the silent hands that have carried wisdom through the years. If this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like, because here we share true lessons from life itself, and one day it might be your story that we tell next.